Okay, here's how Miro works. See? It's amazing.
What's everyone doing at David's desk?
Ever since marketing started using Miro's collaborative online whiteboard, he thinks all our other teams should sign up.
Why?
He says Miro's making his meetings disappear. And if every team gets on it, that means even less meetings. They're using Miro for brainstorms, mind maps, customer research.
So could we use Miro instead of having another 100 meetings for every round of feedback?
Yep. You can comment, react to ideas, even leave a recording on the board.
And what about presentations?
There are Miro templates for that.
How do you know so much about Miro?
I've actually been using it all along. I just used a Miro board to plan the best vacation.
Okay, I'm on board.
See how Miro users save up to 80 hours every year by meeting less and doing more. Get on board at Miro.com with 3 boards free forever. That's MIRO.com.
So welcome to Spotcast. This is episode 30. My name is Tim Mitra, and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
And we also have Jonathan Kuline on the line in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there.
Do I always introduce you third?
No, last episode I got to be second. It was very exciting. I felt like a little bit like I had, overtaken Jaime in some sort of way, but, it's good to see that it's just a flexible thing.
Well, it's, I got called out on the other podcast for not introducing Mark ever second, so... We've been correcting that.
Well, I haven't. I don't think I have the same ego concerns. So I'm always.
No, he doesn't have any ego concerns either. He doesn't.
Happy to be the third banana to Jaime. No problem.
Sure. All right. All right. Well, let's dig in. Do we have any fact check, Jonathan?
Yes, just a couple of fact check items from our last episode. So around the 33-minute mark, I had said the Unimatrix when I was referring to the animated Matrix video that came out, or like a DVD that came out at the time of the Matrix trilogy. It's the Animatrix. I had said the Unimatrix when I must have been thinking about Unimatrix from Star Trek Voyager. And at the 108 mark, Game of Thrones, I think someone had said Game of Thrones was going into season 7. It's actually going into season 8 in April.
Or the final season. Winter's
final season. That's all you need to know is it's the last one.
And there's going to be only 6 episodes this time, right?
6 episodes. They're saying they're going to be about 80.
I was kidding, actually.
6 episodes, but 80 minutes apiece. Estimated is the sort of ballpark. So they're going to be plus sized. So really, if you add the 20 minutes off of each episode, you're getting close to 8 or 9 episodes.
Cool.
But I guess they want to expand per episode what you're getting in one sitting. It's going to be a fun April, May.
Jaime, do we have anything in the headlines?
Yeah, the official trailer for Star Trek Discovery Season 2, which starts up very, very soon on January 17th, 2019. Got some good stuff in there to get you excited for the last, week or so before the wait of the premiere. It's got Spock. It's got this mysterious red angel. Spoilers, I guess, for Season 1 of Discovery, but it's got Empress Georgiou making a return and all sorts of good stuff. Should be exciting. It's worth the 2-minute watch if you haven't seen it yet.
Sure, and Ensign Mount as Captain Pike, the original captain.
Oh, yes, I totally forgot about that.
Early captain of the Enterprise? After Archer, I guess? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows which timeline we're in anymore?
And young bearded Spock.
Yeah.
Guys, have any first impressions of young bearded Spock?
It looks kind of weird. It looks monkey-ish to me, but that's,
He seemed perfectly serviceable. I mean, it definitely helps for them to tell you, oh yeah, this is Spock, and then you just kind of mentally go into it. It's not like they chose somebody specifically who looks like Leonard Nimoy or a young Leonard Nimoy. And that would be tough anyways, because this isn't that long prior to Star Trek, the original series, so they can't like young Han Solo it and be like, just blink, squint a little bit. That's what the guy looked like when he was a kid. Like, no, this is like 10 years prior to what we saw him. So I think it's okay. It's sort of like Zachary Quinto, I think, was also a very serviceable Spock. So I think it'll be more, less first impression and more, show me what you've got during the series that I'll really judge him on.
Cool. So what else we got, JPK?
Well, more Star Trek news this week. News that we are getting a second Star Trek animated series. So the Hollywood Reporter had a nice scoop this week where they had a story that we're going to get second animated series. So we talked in our previous episode about what was it called? Below Decks? Below Decks? Is that what it's called? Lower Decks. Lower Decks was the series that Jaime had mentioned to us that was going to focus on the support crew that serves on the ship, and that was going to be a series that's headed to CBS All Access, therefore making sure that Jaime has to continue to pay his monthly fee. And he got news this week that they are also working on another animated series that may be skewed towards a younger audience, and it may not be for CBS All Access. So there's it's in development, but they haven't said where it's going. So now we factor in, they've got the Picard series in development. They've got the Discovery spinoff with Michelle Yeoh. They've got this Lower Decks. They've got now another animated series going. And the article mentions that there's a Starfleet Academy series that's in development as well. So Trek. We've gone from no Trek in our TV universe for a long time to, it sounds like a glut of Trek all of a sudden.
Lots of Trek. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And there was also the announcement that they're going to do 2 more episodes of the short treks. So today, we're going to this episode, we're going to talk about the 4th and theoretically final episode of Short Treks, but it is in fact not. They've announced that they're going to do a minimum of 2 more, and they're going to do them actually right after season 2, and they're going to be animated. So.
Interesting. The Walking Dead does something like that too. They had webisodes that sort of dovetailed in, and then I think in the last Fear the Walking Dead, they had sort of short little, 2-minute long episodes that kind of broke up into multiple stories. Interesting. But speaking of Picard, what's the next story?
Yeah, so the Picard story came out this week as well. So they're talking about how now that they're starting to break the story down for what they're going to do in this new Picard series, the Hollywood Reporter again had a great story where the showrunner was talking about how they're going to have a, quote, radically altered Picard. So the series is set post Nemesis, obviously. It's been, that many years since the end of that. Plus, if you'll recall from the 2009 J.J. Abrams Star Trek reboot, when Leonard Nimoy's Spock comes from the past, he mentions that a supernova takes out the Romulan homeworld. And so apparently this series is set basically after the dissolution of the Romulan Empire in the events of Nemesis and the destruction of that homeworld. So apparently Picard is going to be potentially in this sort of not unlike what we saw on the Next Generation with Spock himself, who was the ambassador who was going around doing these missions, trying to sort of, be political behind the scenes, trying to, work the universe. We might see Picard in that sort of similar role where, he's come out the other side, obviously pretty closely tied to the actions in Nemesis. So it's kind of sounds like it's going to be a little bit of a spiritual sequel. So, we talked last episode about the fact that we sort of left him at the end of Nemesis. He and Geordi are on the ship, Data's dead, Troy and Riker are gone, Worf's gone. So, not much of the old crew going on. So this sort of sounds like it's kind of a little bit of a spiritual sequel they're headed towards. So that's kind of neat.
Definitely. And it does make me wonder what sort of route they might go. And what comes to mind, given that the Empire, the Romulan Empire, the enemy is defeated, is potentially Cold War type stuff, sort of emulating the post defeat of Nazi Germany, sort of split between the United States and the Soviet Union. Because you could imagine, I'm just thinking out here, fan fiction. It's like, oh, who doesn't like the Romulans and would take advantage of this? Well, the Klingons don't like them, right? And they won't care that they were buddy-buddy during the Dominion War and helped. They'll be like, hey, look, these guys we don't like, let's go take up their land. And you could see the Federation being like, bro, that's not cool. It's like, maybe we should let them be fine and, reintegrate them with the Vulcans who were trying to do that in the TNG era. So I can see some parallels there.
Yeah.
So you think this Picard portrayal it comes off of Nemesis for sure? Like, it's not like an altered universe Picard?
No, they're saying this is within the original timeline. This is we're back to the future.
So I'm confused because when Spock comes back and destroys the Romulan homeworld with this red goo, I forget what it's called, agent something or other. And so how does the character that Picard's clone, how does he get made if there's no Romulan homeworld at that point in time? Because Picard's well in the future, well beyond the timeline where Spock Spock comes back and breaks everything, right?
Well, my impression was that at that point the timeline diverges, right? So it's a separate timeline entirely. So
so he's not in the same Zachary Quinto.
No. So the Zachary Quinto, J.J. Abrams Star Trek is a different timeline. So everything that goes forward from there is a different universe than the one that we know from the original Trek, from all the Trek, the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. You know, we did some of these episodes where they sort of said, you know, the reverberations of time don't affect things massively. So, you know, Picard, you know, still could be a captain in the future or whatever of these different timelines. But I mean, some of the stuff they did, I mean, they blew up Vulcan, they blew up Romulus, like this big stuff. So, you know, that has to be its own sort of timeline. Otherwise, you just basically say, hey, remember those collective 20 seasons you just watched? None of that happened. So that's a bit of a slap in the face to Star Trek fans. I don't know that that's, you know.
So it's not going to be Picard at the helm of a pirate enterprise or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to just suddenly get him showing up with a goatee and, you know, being on the mirror universe or something. I think and again, we talked about the last episode. I think it's really cool that we're finally getting back to the future where we actually have established that, because we haven't seen that since the end of Voyager was the last time we saw that, you know, or Nemesis was the last time we saw that branch of the Star Trek universe. There was nothing after that, because then they went back to Enterprise, they went back to the past, and then they've gone with the J.J. Abrams where they've sort of split the timeline. So we kind of left that in this nowhere land. So it's awesome they're getting back to it.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Late update to our Star Trek stuff. I meant to put this in. I'll put this into our show notes after. But there was a story yesterday as well that is a report. Well, we'll clarify that it is a report that the Star Trek 4, or whatever it would be called, the Post Beyond theatrical movie, the Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto stuff, is now indefinitely on hold. Apparently, the person who is going to be the director of that, whose name is S.J. Clarkson, supposed to be the first female director of a Star Trek film, has apparently been signed on to be the pilot director and executive producer of the new Game of Thrones series for HBO. And so there was a story that basically came out yesterday saying, hey, that means that this is basically indefinitely now on the shelf, because she's not going to do both, because obviously the responsibility of a Game of Thrones HBO series is not a light one. So,
and Chris Pine's not coming back too, right?
Well, there was a whole thing last year about whether Pine would or wouldn't come back, and apparently he said he was interested and he wanted to, but he wanted to be treated fairly because obviously he's the star of the show. And there was some dual negotiations because apparently they wanted to bring back Chris Hemsworth as his father, and obviously Mr. Hemsworth gets paid a significant penny after casting himself as, you know, Thor over the last, 10 years plus. He's going to be in the new Men in Black, and he's a star. So they were sort of running into...
Did he die in the first episode, though?
He did, in fact, die. So obviously there would have to be some timey-wimey. What is it Doctor Who calls it? Timey-wimey? There would have to be a little bit of time machination to make that work. But apparently that was the plot, was that there was going to be some sort of adventure that would have brought George Kirk into an adventure where we'd have to team up with his son. So interesting. But apparently that is now... this is from Deadline. Deadline basically said that the fact that the director has been snapped up by HBO is not good for Star Trek 4. So it doesn't sound like we're going to be getting anything from that. And, I'll be honest, with all the sort of excitement of the ramp up on television again, I enjoy the reboots. I thought all three of them were good in their own way. They weren't the best movies, but they were certainly enjoyable to see, that world on the big screen. I'm not dying for a sequel, but then, they don't do a bad job. So I would take more if they want to make more, but I'm also, I'm keen to see what they do with Discovery and Picard and the, Michelle Yeoh series. And we just talked about, there's going to be, at this point, it sounds like 5 or 6 different things on the go. So,
well, Netflix has sort of introduced a new idiom in that, you've got movies that are coming out on Netflix, but also in the theater at the same time, like Bird Box and the Buster Crab or whatever it's called, Adventures of Buster Somebody, the Coen movie, Coen Brothers movie. So maybe that's somewhere that's going to change up the way that we see films, specifically, right? Like, there's an audience that wants to sit at home and chill, and there's an audience that wants to go to the big theater and, get the big sound and the bad popcorn and stuff,
Yeah, no, it could be an interesting next few years for us to sort of see how these things evolve. I mean, even if they put it into the theater for, a couple of weeks and then, and then it moves on to their services, it changes the way the game's played. It certainly does. And it makes, again, we've already had this discussion about how Jaime has waffled back and forth about whether or not to have a subscription to some of these things. But boy, if they're going to start giving us content like that, it's awfully hard to want to cut it off. Especially if they're doing that they have the brands, right? CBS has Star Trek right now, and that's gold. I mean, obviously they're sharing it with Netflix internationally, and they're sharing it with Space, which is Bell here in Canada. But if you have the brands, you can certainly do a lot with that. You might see bigger and bigger things starting to migrate to television in different ways that way.
Yeah, it's funny. Space has always sort of been the sci-fi place to go, like to get your sci-fi content. But lately, it's like every night it's like Star Trek channel. Yeah, it's very strange. I was just watching an episode just before we started recording, which I'd never seen before. All right, what's happening with our Netflix pals, Mr. Daredevil?
Well, we talked in our last episode about the fact that Netflix had canceled the Marvel's Daredevil series, and we were sort of speculating, well, what does cancellation mean? We know that Disney is launching its Disney Plus service. Would they want to reboot some of those characters on that service, or would they think about moving them to Hulu, since they will own a majority share in Hulu once they finish their purchase of Fox and their assets? And the news came out last week that Daredevil is apparently has a clause in it that says that it's for 2 years that Netflix basically has the exclusive rights to it. So the earliest that we could get a next season for Daredevil, if it were to move platforms, is 2 years away. So I don't know if that is applicable to the other Netflix Marvel series. It'd be very logical to assume that that's the case. So if it's 2 years post cancellation or 2 years past, I don't know what the exact date is. Absence makes the heart grow weaker. I don't know. People, if you didn't give them a Netflix style Daredevil, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, Punisher, Defenders series for a 2 year span, does that make people hungrier for it, or does that mean people are like, yeah, I've moved on, especially in the content crazy world where people are just getting more and more and more. So, and there was a follow-up, a very small one this week, where Mike Coulter, the actor who played Luke Cage quite well, I think, said basically, I think, I still feel like somewhere down the road I'm going to play this character again. Now, that could just be him, hoping that that's the case. But, for him to go on the record and say that's a glimmer of hope for people out there who, like me, who enjoyed those series. I think we agreed last episode that there was a lot of good. There was certainly some improvements that could be made, but certainly didn't deserve to get the axe like a lot of them did. Maybe some did. Iron Fist, some of them deserved.
Yeah, I could understand why this 2 year gap exists. I mean, it's sort of in Netflix's, or was in Netflix's best interest when they set up the contracts. It's a real bummer for fans for the precise reasons that Jonathan just talked about, where it kind of left wondering, okay, like clearly Disney's going to do something with this, but what? Given the time skip here, is it, hey, we'll put all the main stars on these retainers, hang on to them, like get ready to get started in 2020 because that's when we're going to start making this thing. We're going to release it right on the day that the expiration handles comes into play for the 2 years, or are they going to Batman Begins it and be like, hey, guess what? It's a new Batman. It's kind of in the same vein, but it's a totally different person, sort of thing. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there, and so I'm very interested to see there. My betting money says all of these properties that they took off of Netflix will come out on Disney Plus. It's just not clear to me what format they'll be.
So what other brands are they taking off of Netflix?
I think it was all the Defenders characters, right?
Yeah,
Did I get that right?
It was all the stuff they had in their partnership with Marvel. So Jessica Jones, The Punisher, which The Punisher, we're going to get season 2 of that in a week, I think. It's next week. It's going to be the middle of January. We're going to finally see that. I wonder if we're going to immediately get the cancellation news, a week after that, because that seems like it's been the pattern. Is it? They're like, hey, hope you enjoyed that. Bye. And then Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Daredevil, and then Defenders, which they'd already said there was probably not going to be another Defenders series because it did not inspire as they hoped.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what's next, Jonathan?
Next, well, this one got me really excited. So this was a couple weeks ago, but very cool. So, The Dark Crystal is one of my all-time favorite movies. Saw it in the theater when I was a kid, and really, really excited to see that it is getting revived. So The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance is going to be a 10-episode prequel series set before The Dark Crystal in the world of Dark Crystal. And so we got our first look at this a couple weeks ago, and we got a first taste of who's going to be on the voice cast, because obviously this is done through Jim Henson's company. There's going to be obviously a lot of puppets playing these different characters, but we're going to get Mark Hamill is going to do one of the voices, Natalie Emmanuel, who is from Game of Thrones, Anya Taylor-Joy, Taron Egerton, Helena Bonham Carter. So a pretty cool little taste of that, and we actually got to see a few pictures, and again, it looks very much like that world. So yeah, pretty cool to see all these sort of familiar tastes of this world, and I can't wait. But they still haven't said when they anticipate releasing it. I'm just double checking this story right now, but I don't see anything. It says sometime in 2019, so it is coming this year, and it is definitely one of my most anticipated series of the year. But yeah, really cool to get our first look at that. It's been 30 years since we've had a chance to go back to that world, so very cool.
Oh yeah. So rapid fire, what's next?
Rapid fire, here we go. So Benicio del Toro, oh my goodness, this one made me laugh. So the story from the AV Club, Benicio del Toro is going to play Swiper in the Dora the Explorer movie. Words just fail me, really. Yeah, signed on for a starring role in Dora the Explorer, coming off of Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado. Yeah, so he's going to be the voice of a live-action CG hybrid film Swiper. Yeah, I just, when I first saw him, as a rising star in the James Bond movie and in Usual Suspects, it just never occurred to me this man should be Swiper the Fox. But yep, there it is. So Benicio del Toro, we were joking about the weird things that were being turned into live action movies and how everything just sort of comes back around again. We talked last episode about how they're turning all these great anime series into live action and how they're turning all these cartoon series into live action. Well, hey, big name. You're a Dora the Explorer fan. You're getting a big name cast member for your new movie. So there you go.
Yeah, this one's cool. I mean, I guess in a way it sort of makes sense. Spoilers for Star Wars The Last Jedi, but this is kind of similar to his character DJ in that movie. They were looking to swipe stuff. So, and Sicario is a little bit more hard-edged than that. But
when we eventually sit down to do our Mystery Science Theater 3000 version of Star Wars Episode 8, then we can do Swiper No Swiping when he comes on screen.
Yeah, this is going to be, I mean, what's next? You have SpongeBob SquarePants played by, Vin Diesel or Danny Trejo or something. What's
I am Groot.
Yeah. That was a stretch. But anyways, that one made me laugh, and it ticked off of our conversation last time, so I thought I'd flag that one for our fans.
Interesting. Yeah, cool. Well, speaking of recycled superheroes, Jaime.
Or renewed, revitalized. How about revitalized?
All right.
Maybe that's a term. So the new Hellboy 2019 movie, there's a trailer out there. We'll have that linked in the show notes so those of you transporting it home. This one does not star Ron Perlman, which seems to be news to a lot of folks in the comments. It is, in fact, David Harbour, who you might know as was he the sheriff? Jim Hopper in Stranger Things.
Yep.
He's been in a billion things since then, Suicide Squad and stuff. But he's going to be the one taking on the horns and the glove. So that comes out April 12th, it looks like.
What'd you think?
I thought it was pretty reasonable. I mean, people seem to give a lot of grief on the trailer, but it starts off pretty good. It seemed a little bit more low key in terms of the comedy aspect. It seemed like it was being played a little bit more straight than the original Hellboy, but we'll see. I mean, they show the full horned, full demon sort of mode in the trailer, so I imagine it might have some some comedy and darkness together. It was a nice blend.
Yeah, it almost felt in the trailer like there was cheating, though. You think about even the fact it's only been, 12, 15 years since the first one came out? Think about the advances they've made in digital technology to be able to just make it that much better. You know, if they put this level of effort and modern technology into the last one, how much better the last one would have looked and felt and everything else. You know, it almost felt like, almost felt a little bad for, you know, the previous ones where it's like, oh man, you know, you're going to get compared to this new one. And I don't know that that's apples and apples. It feels like apples and oranges when you get that, like, you know, 10 years of technological advancements.
Sure. And I do wonder, because I don't think this specific trailer showed it, but I do wonder if I forget the merman's character's name, but he was voiced by David Hyde Pierce, and I think it was Doug Jones as the actor, which kind of makes sense because Doug Jones also did the Shape of Water creature, if I'm not mistaken. So
And Saru,
yes. Sorry, I guess I should have said that. You know, for folks who watch Discovery, that would be Saru. Like every time you need some weird creature, it's either Andy Serkis or Doug Jones. You call them up and see who answers the phone first.
I'll be honest. I hope at some point that they finally get the respect that those two are due. At some point, they got to get the Lifetime Achievement Oscars because, geez, those guys are doing great work. You know, like think about how different movies like Shape of Water, Hellboy to a lesser extent, you know, the Hobbit films, the Lord of the Rings films are without those performances. You know, like that's
Planet of the Apes, the new Planet of the Apes ones too, right?
The last Planet of the Apes movie was amazing. The acting was incredible. You know, the amount of emotion in those digital characters was astounding.
Yeah, I was going to say I watched the movie the other day, and when I sort of went on the IMDb and followed who this actor was, I also saw that he was the other character in the last Planet of the Apes movie, and like, so he's getting sort of Andy Serkis kind of cred for his what do you call that? Not stop motion. What do you call it?
Motion capture.
Motion capture. Yeah, his motion capture performance. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yep.
So why wouldn't they do Hellboy with motion capture?
I guess it's not necessary. I mean, there has been this renaissance in practical effects too, right? I mean,
that's true, yeah.
When you look at what they did, that one scene that Jaime referenced where, you know, Hellboy is basically rising from the pits of hell, and he is the fully done up in prosthetics David Harbour plus the digital horns floating over his head and stuff. Like that's the best of all worlds.
Yeah, true. What else you got, Jaime?
Yeah, this is one that I didn't know we needed, but the internet has provided, I think, here in that would be the trailer for Men in Black International, a sequel to the Men in Black series that stars Chris Hemsworth. That would be Thor, and Tessa Thompson. That was the Valkyrie from Thor Ragnarok. They are rejoined to be the characters in the I forget which exact agents. Oh, there we go. Agent H and Agent M.
So it's humans in black?
Sure.
Am I missing something here?
Persons in black.
Persons in black.
Yeah, persons in black.
People in black, yeah. The Men in Black name is, well, I mean, based on their mythology, it started like in the 50s-ish era, so, you know, it was a less inclusive time.
That's true. Well, they had Emma Thompson, though, so they're
being more inclusive by going in across the pond to London, and this does not star Tommy Lee Jones nor Will Smith, though there is a little...
And no Michael Jackson cameo.
No Michael Jackson cameo, but there is a nod to them in the trailer with the like paintings in the background that show like some of their heroic deeds. And it looks like this comes out on June 14th of this year.
Yeah, I didn't know we need that one either.
Yeah, I wonder in the very competitive, and we'll talk a little bit about the anticipated movies for this year. It's on the list, but on a list of 30 movies this year, and 10 of those are must-sees. I'm not sure. That's probably on the bubble for me. That feels an awful lot like a watch it on VOD.
Cool. Yeah.
But right, funny. Jaime? They're good. They're both of them are good actors, and they're both funny, so they could be good.
Yeah. And then, Jaime?
Then we have a special look at Captain Marvel that is coming out in, March 8th, I think. And it shows more good stuff, you know, more of the interaction between a young Nick Fury, played by Mr. Glass. Why is his name escaping me? Samuel L. Jackson. Mr. Glass, another movie coming out. Yeah. And, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm really excited for this movie. Watch this trailer. If you are somehow not excited, I don't know, I guess we can't be friends anymore, but...
Check your pulse.
Soon as the podcast is over.
Yeah. And I just think it will hopefully be one of the better movies that we'll see coming out of the Marvel series this year. Of course, we've got Avengers Endgame that everybody's excited about, but this one should lead right into that in a rather nice way. So looking forward to that. Oh, I threw in an extra link here. That was, I was watching the Golden Globe Awards, and I noticed this, what appears to be a very expensive ad by Walmart, of all companies. So Walmart is trying to push the grocery pickup. So you order online, and then you just show up to this little spot, this little pre-designated parking spot, and Walmart employees will come out with your stuff already pre-picked for you, kind of like a halfway in between Amazon Prime Now and Instacart, if you think of it that way. But the whole sort of gist of this commercial is they show just about every famous vehicle or franchise that somehow involve vehicles, like the Transformers and Batman, Scooby-Doo, the Dumb and Dumber van, even a Jurassic Park vehicle, interacting with the Walmart employees in humorous ways. If you somehow didn't see the ad because they've been playing it a lot on TV, we have
or
it here
covered up by
shots.
Canada's, like, don't show American commercials during the Golden Globes kind of stuff.
Oh, really? Did they do that?
I didn't see it. I watched the Golden Globes, and mind you, I didn't watch it from the very beginning. I missed maybe the first 20 minutes or so, but
well, and they don't air ads for that if it's service that doesn't apply here. And
right.
We played this game before, but I have not looked it up. I wonder if that service is coming here also.
I mean, it seems like it'd be rather handy given the inclement weather that I understand happens in Canada from time to time. Could imagine not wanting to get out of the car to go pick up groceries.
Said the man who's sitting 40 degrees north of us.
Well, and I was going to say, and as opposed to the beach-like conditions in Seattle in January.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more like a tropical rainforest by comparison to the,
That's true.
the wildlings type environment they imagine that you all live through during the winter time frame.
Sure.
You nailed it. That's pretty much what it's
like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, they haven't built the northern wall yet, so.
That's true. Well, it's just because Trump hasn't looked up yet.
Yeah. Wait for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're at the main part of the show, the main beef of the show, the thing that started this whole thing. Well, I guess sort of this kind of an offshoot of the thing that started this podcast.
Yeah, it's
that
a thing
being
of a thing.
Star Trek Discovery.
Yep.
And again, this is such a short little. These short treks are only 15 minutes long, I believe, 20 minutes long. So we really can't do much of a spoiler. Well, we can not do the big reveal at the end, I guess. But so we just saw the Escape Artist starring Rainn Wilson as Harry Mudd. So one of my favorite characters from the original Star Trek, as well as this one. So what did you guys think of the Escape Artist short trek?
I mean, I liked it. I'd have to sit back and think about, of the 4 short treks, which one that I like the most. I still think that Calypso, the one with Kraft, the guy from the future, might be sort of the most poignant one for me, and possibly even the one with Saru was kind of interesting from this explains where that character comes from. This particular episode, to me, lives and dies 100% on the excellent acting and charisma coming off of Rainn Wilson playing Mr. Mudd there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious what you guys thought, because I'm a little bit less vested in the original series. Fans of the show might know that I grew up with TNG as my Star Trek, so that's sort of where the lens that I view things through. But I'm very curious what you all thought.
Yeah, I mean the sort of the Harry Mudd character in the original series and the guy who sells the tribbles, I forgot his name, but they're sort of the snake oil salesman that you used to get in westerns, back in the day. Like there would be some sort of guy who would come into town, a rainmaker or selling snake oil or whatever. And so that was the sort of, because I mean the original series was very much a western, right? So in that same sort of genre, it was like basically meant to be like, I forget, Gunsmoke in space or something, that kind of thing, right? So that kind of character is not say as threatening as Picard's clone. I can't remember his name now. Or some of the nastier villains we've seen in Star Trek. That was like even Emperor Giorgio on the evil side of the mirror universe. So it's a fun character, and the guy who plays, it's kind of an interesting point though. I don't know if have you seen the 2 Harry Mudd episodes at all from the original series, Jaime?
I have, and I'm not even sure if it's spoilers to talk about the title.
Well, it is to talk about one of them. Oh, I don't know about the title of the second one, but the second one, as we know, is Harry Mudd's dealing in androids, right? So, which is why this becomes a really interesting sort of spoiler warning, a twist inside of this short track that we just watched, right? So, and I love the fact, you know, like he'd sort of, I would never say that, and then they cut to a scene where he's saying exactly what he would never say, you know, or in the past kind of thing, right? So flashbacks. It was fun. I mean, you know, of the short treks, I think this one for me was the most interesting. You know, I like the throwbacks to the actual first season when they talk about, you know, him. What do they say? What was the word? Not impregnating a whale or something, a space whale, or they use a different term, but they, you know, getting inside of a space
inside whale. I'm not even sure if we have to censor the word that they have specific word they used. So space kissing. What is that? We used that before, right? Talking about Orville.
Penetrating or something.
Yeah, infiltrating or something like that. Yeah, there was a word they used in it, which actually sounded dirtier than we're making it sound. But it's interesting. What do you think of it, Jonathan?
It was easily the most digestible of the 4 short treks. It moved very fast. It was well made. It was obviously because it was cutting back and forth in different periods of time. It had these sort of quick cuts. It was well done. It was well, and apparently Rainn Wilson also directed it.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, double duty and double duty done well. He's charming and he's funny, and you know, he clearly loves that character. He gets exactly what the original actor was going for, and he's clearly paying a great homage to that. It's by far the most sort of digestible one. It's not a head scratcher. It's clearly just sort of sit down. You know, it should come with a bag of popcorn because it's just a delightful little popcorn munch. You know, I'm not sure, as you know, think about the order of those things. Yeah, it's, you know, we started off with sort of a, you know, Tilly's existential sort of moment, and then we went on to the
Calypso,
the Calypso, which was obviously the deepest think piece of these 4. Then we did the Saru episode, and now we've got this one. Obviously, they're very different in tone. You know, we don't know how this is going to impact. We talked about this in previous episodes, how this is going to sort of, whether or not these things will have weight or consequence on the season that's coming, or if they're just one-offs. But as a one-off story, this was wonderful. It was great. It was a great, funny little look at a character who's long established in the canon of Star Trek, and you know, it does have a delightful twist, and it is the most perfectly Harry Mudd episode you would expect to see. So I think it was really, it's definitely an enjoyable little 15-minute bite of Star Trek.
Yeah, there's sort of like little mini Twilight Zone kind of episodes where, you know, there's a little story that's, like you said, self-contained, doesn't need to, I mean, it's in a universe we're comfortable with, you know, but it doesn't necessarily can be connected, and they can be sort of enjoyed on their own. It's not like, you know, like the Clone Wars or Rebels, where you sort of have a story that runs. They originally sort of seemed to be self-contained as well, but they had a long-running arc in them as well. But this doesn't seem to have any sort of connection or any kind of arc that we know of yet. So they're kind of fun in their own way, and they're sort of like, they're like the Animatrix in the sense that they're 4 different views of the same universe, maybe like almost like 4 different directors, 4 different writers, you know, playing with the characters, right? And what's fun for me, though, is, and coming back to the sort of snake oil angle, is that in a lot of the science fiction books that I read as a kid, like, you know, Asimov and Heinlein and stuff like that, not so much Arthur C. Clarke, he always took himself too seriously, but there was always a character or someone out there to make a buck. There's always somebody who's got to make a buck off of this whatever we're in, like, you know, whether it was the shipping stories in the original Foundation, you know, like the guys who did the early transports between planets, and because somebody had to do that, somebody had to be the Uber driver in space, right? And it's just fun to sort of see this you know, kind of character always working an angle, you know. And he works quite a few angles in this one, and, you know, ultimately he pulls the wool over the Federation's eyes as well. So
it's good. Nice tee up. I'm excited, and it was a nice little bridge. It was nice to have some Trek back in our world, because it was a long gap. So it was nice to have something to look forward to in that universe, and it's made me keen to dive back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and if I had to pick my favorite episode from the series that we just the first season, the Harry Mudd episode for me for sure. Like,
the one with the time loop.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
It was a great episode. It was really well done.
Anytime Star Trek does that, like, you know, the one in TNG where they're stuck in the Enterprise keeps blowing up, and they have to keep going back. And spoilers. It's kind of like Bandersnatch in that way. Every time somebody remembers something slightly different, and I like those kind of angles where there's an insolvable puzzle that they eventually muddle their way through. Right? Yeah. Cool. Good. I highly recommend this episode. All right. So moving on, we also saw 2 episodes of the Orville season 2, so that we can talk about. So dive in.
Well, I'll fire the first shot. So the first episode was Jaloja, which was the Great Release. The episode centered around Bortus, who had to return to his homeworld, where he was to do his annual bladder release. He has to go back to his homeworld and in a ceremonial fashion have the 1 pee that he has a year. Funny concept. Not exactly a funny episode. The B plot was around the Doctor and her son not behaving himself, and that was pretty weak, I thought. And there's sort of a Dr. Isaac chemistry thing. There was another subplot with Captain Ed Mercer and Kelly, his first officer / ex-wife, who he's still carrying a torch for her. She's moved on. She started a new relationship. And then they introduce the new dark matter cartographer, Lieutenant Janelle Tyler, on board, who immediately catches the interest of Ensign Tyler, the
goofball. The
goofball, yes, the lovable
Ralph Malph,
ship pilot. So immediately there's sort of a setup there for Ed and Gordon having a sort of love triangle. It's Gordon. For Ed and Gordon to have a little love triangle thing going on with Tyler. They did not pick that up in the second episode. The second episode was about Bortus again. Bortus focusing on the fact that he has become a hollow porn addict, which really immediately tweaked me back to a TNG episode about somebody who had some difficulty separating from the... I'm sure Jaime will remember this one very vividly.
Which episode is that? Sorry.
It's the one where... do you remember his name? The character name?
Barclay?
Barclay, yes. Barclay becomes addicted to the holodeck.
Oh, okay.
And so then it's about his ability, his problems with becoming addicted to it and not being able to, separate reality and sort of becoming too deeply involved in that world. In this case, they take it to the next level, which is that exactly where you think people would go if they could create these fully realized digital immersive worlds.
I think they could go much further than this.
Which is to go in there and have lots of sex. So Bortus becomes a hollow porn addict. He goes in there and starts having sex with fellow members of his race that are holograms. His husband finds out or is frustrated with his absence and his behavior and tries to murder / divorce him, because the way that they divorce one another is by stabbing them through the chest. And the story also sort of focuses on this rescue mission as the Orville tries to save these people who are on a planet that is being quickly melted away by their sun. Bortus's porn addiction ends up bringing some malware aboard the ship, which makes their rescue mission dangerous. And in the end, Bortus learns a valuable lesson about family and value and all this stuff. And we do get a tie back to season 1 when Bortus and his husband Clyden have to make the decision whether or not to alter the gender of their child, which was a very contentious sort of subject and interesting subject matter for an episode last year. So that's the summary. In the sum of their parts, I cannot say I'm very enthused so far by the first 2 episodes.
I'm absolutely right there with you. I just kept WTF for the 3 letters that came to mind as I was watching these episodes.
Yeah, they're not funny enough to be funny, and they're not good enough to be simply good sci-fi. The tone is just all over the place. I don't feel a real investment in any of the characters. As a matter of fact, I feel downright open dislike for several of them. In a peculiar one, I think we had said a few episodes ago, Halston Sage, who plays Alara, the security officer, is leaving. I have a feeling that it's in the next episode, just based on some stuff that I'd read online, but I can't confirm that. So it was weird to see her there, knowing that was the case, and they haven't addressed in any kind of way that that's a problem.
Maybe she read the scripts or something.
Well, and that was honestly, I found myself thinking maybe she got out in time, because it's not great sci-fi, and it's just not even great television. And from somebody who's as creative as Seth MacFarlane is, and I am a fan, I mean, Family Guy is a terrific show. He's very, very funny. I've seen some of his other work and enjoyed it, but this is just not maximizing the potential. And even some of the other cast, I enjoy some of the other actors, and there were sort of glimpses in the last season, but I'm kind of, it's, this is Brussels sprouts. This is not steak.
Right.
What'd you think, Jaime?
Yeah, I can understand the first 2 episode thing. I will note here that at least one of these episodes that we saw was more than likely one that was slated for season 1. And I think we talked about how sort of early on they were sort of trying to get their footing and a grasp of the tone, like how funny are we going to go? How dramatic are we going to go? I would agree that both of these episodes kind of swing sort of wildly back and forth, which implied to me that even if only one of them was planned to be in season 1, it kind of feels like both were written during the season 1 timeframe. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very similar to Voyager, which also had like a couple episodes that were written and intended to be season 1 and ended up getting shoved into season 2. And tonally, they're quite weird from the rest of the season 2 episodes. So I'll give it a little bit of a pass, thinking, all right, this was probably early episodes and not some of the better episodes that we talked about from season 1 of The Orville. So I guess I'm slightly contrarian in that, like, it sounds like, unlike the two of you guys, I'll probably continue watching. I don't know that I'll make the same grand proclamation I just made with Captain Marvel of like, we can't be friends anymore if you're not excited. This one, I totally understand why people would not be excited. If it's not for you, it's not for you. It's kind of for me, so I'll at least kind of watch it, So
could you imagine, though, you've been listening to these guys last year talk about this great show called The Orville, which is sort of a reboot, and it's a new, fresh take on the whole trekking through space kind of thing, and these are the first 2 episodes you watch. What would compel you to watch episode 3? I look at it as a very expensive, great sci-fi special. I mean, I don't even know why they went through the process of animating the ships in this episode. And I mean, even the way that the shuttle kind of whips around is a little implausible too. But in this last episode especially. But I mean, like, the planet's blowing up, and this shuttle is able to just sort of cruise around in space while everybody else is melting, and it just there was a lot of flaws in these 2 episodes. I found it really weak, and it's kind of like. Remember how I sort of said I'm really struggling to get back into Supergirl because of the whole blatant racism what is it? Is it racism? I guess it is racism that they sort of throw in your face.
Yeah, the anti-immigrant stuff they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that was my big problem with Enterprise. Unlike the rest of you guys, and maybe we can't be friends, I liked the Enterprise reboot, right? That they did with Captain Archer, and I didn't like it when the Americans went to the war in the Gulf and the Xindi showed up in Enterprise.
Yeah, that was a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, so even the Dominion War in Deep Space Nine was a turnoff for me, because it was all during that same sort of, like, I got crap happening on the news and I don't want to watch it in my sci-fi at the same time, So, I mean, scare the hell out of me in sci-fi or something like that, but don't, just mirror what's happening in my daily life, right? Give me some sort of escape, right?
Well, that sounds like The Orville is perfect for you, because like almost nothing that they're dealing with here
is parallels real life.
Remotely related to geopolitical situations.
Well, and again, we talked about it. The Bortus episode immediately sort of hit me as that sort of retread of the Barclay storyline. We talked about one of the weaknesses of season 1.
The direct ripoff from the Vulcan. What's it? Mock Time, right?
Yeah. I mean, the both of the episodes, did exactly what last year's sort of weaknesses were. Was it felt like it was going for homage to Trek, but it wasn't fresh enough. It wasn't like they freshened them up enough. I mean, just the fact that it's changed from, well, I'm addicted to it because I like spending time in there, to I'm addicted to it because I get to go in there and have sex with other Moclans.
That's not imaginary. That's not imaginative enough either, right?
It truly isn't. And, it made me think, we're going to see some changes in the next little while because, the purchase of Disney is going to buy some of the Fox assets, but Fox is going to keep his network. And so, it made me think, this whole experience makes me wonder what this series would have been like if it was a Netflix series or something where they could just drop the gloves.
Is it a Disney series or Fox series?
No, it's a Fox series. It's made for Fox. I wonder, though, again, it's network television, right? So it's like network. So they'll push the envelope, but only to a certain degree. It's not even to the borders of where we go on Family Guy. Like, it's not as edgy as Family Guy.
No, nowhere near, yeah.
It's actually a little too saccharine at times. times it's a little too, like it's not even, there was some moments on TNG and some of those ones where you're like, oh, this is a little sappy, but not often.
Yeah, but like when they did things like Minuet, the character Minuet in The Next Generation, like the couple of episodes that she was in, so that was pretty great sci-fi, like from that point of view. Like
it was, but again, it was exploring the themes. And again, no disrespect to the people who are doing there, but I think it's the strength of writing. And again, I don't know what kind of constraints they're under. Again, writing for network versus syndication versus nowadays. I think the problem is that we're exposed to so much great TV. We talked about this on our past episodes. When you're competing for a piece of the pie in a network versus network world, that's one thing. When you're competing across all platforms, boy, it's awfully hard to make a case for this needing to be on your menu.
True.
But again, I think, I've got some investment. I think I will probably,
I haven't raised my PVR setting, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably keep track. I don't know that I will be like, clamoring on a Thursday night to immediately find out what happens. It'll be interesting, obviously, for all our fans, we will, try and keep a more regular schedule as we get into Discovery, going into a more regular mode. In the next few weeks, it'll be interesting to see which of us, or if any of us, stay regular with Orville, or if we sort of come at it in bits and pieces. Because again, we're also, we're starting into a time of year where we are going to get more, for me, The Flash is coming back and Arrow's coming back and Supergirl's coming back. And here in Canada, we're going to finally get Runaways season 2. Titans from the DC app is coming to our television airwaves. So there's going to be a lot of genre sci-fi stuff. Plus, you never know, they're going to, again, we talked about Punisher season 2. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming in, even early in this year, we're going to see a lot of content. Can you make another, and they increased the length of the episode times. That was one of the things that we didn't really get into, but they increased the episode times to like 50 minutes. I think there are almost 50 minutes long too.
With the Orville?
The Orville, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's a commitment. And, I'm not sure where, if I had to rank it right now in the shows that I'm watching, it's at the bottom.
Yeah. So, I mean, like just to close on this point, I think last year, we started this podcast based on watching Star Trek Discovery, and the Orville came up as a sort of alternate. And I think for you guys, at least, the Orville was competing with Star Trek Discovery in terms of keeping your attention, right?
Yeah, it was at times, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, this was a really, they haven't taken the lead that they had the opportunity to do this year, because Star Trek is starting much later, right? So
yeah, I think if you follow any of the social media stuff, like let's say the subreddits for Star Trek Discovery and the Orville, I think both shows have sort of the opposite problem. So I think like the yin and yang problem of the other. So if you go into the Star Trek Discovery social media channels, there are a lot of people who like, and there are a lot of people who don't like the modernization of Trek that's happening with Star Trek Discovery. It really sort of started with possibly Enterprise, if we really go that far back, but certainly at least the J.J. Abrams Kelvin timeline sort of movies, right, where Star Trek was a definite thing for many, many years, maybe a little bit too much of the same thing, and some folks tried to modernize it, and that sort of culminates in the more Battlestar Galactica-esque, very heavily serialized-esque sort of Star Trek Discovery. And there are some fans who straight up are not comfortable with that, and that's okay. Like I am, that's cool. And I think the thing I'm hearing from the other side, and it seems like both of you guys certainly feel this way, that the Orville is very heavily, firmly rooted in the past, right? It's not doing enough to sort of stretch the bounds of sci-fi or move out of the shadow of its source material of TNG. There are definitely fans who like that, and there are definitely fans who don't. So I think it'll be interesting to see how these two shows sort of are intertwined with each other. It kind of reminds me of the old online arguments when Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5 came out, right? Two shows kind of similar in concept. It's a space station sort of thing. In this case, it's two shows kind of similar-esque, kind of tied at the hip, at least historically. I'll be very interested to see what ends up happening here.
Yep. Yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, you're right. The tone was good, but they're not off to a great start, so it'll be good to see where they go.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to the watch lists. Jaime, what do you got first on the watch list?
Yeah, it's a little late for Christmas, but if you celebrate the 24 days of Christmas, You double up the 12. There is the Into the Spider-Verse Christmas album that's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. I've not seen this movie, but apparently there's mention of this very album within the movie itself. And apparently Spidey Bells, the Jingle Bells bit, is sung by Chris Pine. Yeah, I listened to this playlist. It's kind of humorous, but I have no clue, no context, because I've not seen the Golden Globe winning Into the Spider-Verse. So
yeah, this is the new animated one. Yeah,
this one is the number one on my want to see list. I really thought I would see it over the holidays, but just never found the time for it.
Right, cool.
Similarly, on my somehow didn't see over the holiday time frame was Bumblebee, and in this case, it's a YouTube video on the director of Bumblebee breaking down the classic designs of Transformers Generation 1 and how they mapped those into the movie itself. And been seeing good things about this movie. I think it's got above 90% freshness rating in Rotten Tomatoes last I looked. Seems like folks are pretty happy with it, which is kind of unusual for a Transformers film, given the prior Michael Bay ones, and also probably even less common for a prequel, which this takes place 20 years before. But I think part of that, in my opinion, is watch this video and see how they stayed true to those designs, because those designs certainly caught my eye as like, wow, that's exactly what I remembered when I was a little kid.
Yeah, and this Bumblebee is the Bumblebee that was originally the Volkswagen, not the Camaro in the last Transformers movies, right?
I believe it's intended to be the same character, but it is, you're right, he is an old school Volkswagen Beetle in this one.
Well, that's what he was in the comics and stuff, or the original
the cartoon,
figure, right? Yeah, cool. All right, for me, I got a couple of quick ones here. So I had the opportunity to watch Avengers Infinity War on Netflix, because on Netflix here in Canada right now. So I sat down and watched that one from the very beginning. And what was nice about it was, rather than sitting in a theater with 3D glasses on me and all the things being hurled at me at full speed, if I missed something, I could go back and hit rewind on the remote real quick and go back through it. I caught more of the sort of interplay between characters, like, because there were some characters that come into the movie and then they kind of exit real quick without trying to give any too many spoilers away, but sort of more the connections with the other 20 movies. Is it 19 movies or whatever we've had leading up to this one?
20 plus,
so, yeah. So coming out of it, I kind of, after having watched it, I think this is actually probably one of my favorite movies of the whole Marvel franchise, because of I love stories where all the sort of super characters come in and interact with each other. Thor with the meeting the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Rocket steals the eye from some guy in the second movie or whatever, which he then was able to deal to Thor to fix Thor's eye thing. I mean, like all those sort of little things that I would have missed in the original movie. The original watching of the movie in the theater, I was able to go back and sort of get through and figure that stuff out. So that was really cool. Yep. So next question for you guys is: have you all? I know Jaime has seen Bandersnatch, but have you seen Bandersnatch?
No, actually I haven't.
Oh, John, have you seen Bandersnatch?
I have not.
So Bandersnatch is an interesting take on the...
So, to clarify, it's Black Mirror, right? It's Black Mirror.
Yeah, Black Mirror. Yeah,
it's the new Black Mirror standalone movie, right?
Yeah, it's a standalone episode. Yeah, and it's the what do you call it? Make your own adventure book style.
Yeah, choose your own adventure. Yeah,
choose your own adventure, and so you literally with your. I mean, the first time you see the remote, say pick up your remote and choose this path or that path, you're like, what? And then you follow down, and it's very well done because you don't get how they're doing what they're doing, and as you go through it's very creatively done, and it's a choose your own adventure. I'm not going to spoil anything for people. It's based on like a kid who's writing a computer game on an old Sinclair ZX something or other computer. Timex used to sell them back in the day, and very very popular in the UK. Sort of a competitor to the Commodore 64, I believe. Right. Anyway, he's writing this sort of game, this thing, and it's very trippy. It's got all these sort of you end up in these pitfalls and blind alleys and stuff like that in the story, and I think it's interesting from an interplay point of view, because I think every viewer has the potential to end up in a different place and see a different movie, so it's very very well done that way. So I highly recommend watching Bandersnatch. And my last one is we just interviewed on Roundabout. Tammy promises to get her episodes out in a timely manner, so I don't have a problem talking about this person here. We just interviewed the creator of Dr. Puppet, which is a stop motion animation of the Doctor Who universe. And she started 5 years ago with, I think she said when Matt Smith first joined up. She's a puppeteer. She does stop motion animation. In fact, she said puppet is the wrong terminology for this because it confuses people as to what a stop motion animation is. So, sort of like Wallace and Gromit, where every scene is lit and the characters are posed. She makes the puppets herself. She has a bunch of friends. She started out in her living room, put them up on YouTube. BBC is behind her. The Doctor Who people are behind. I don't mean behind her, but they're supportive of her fan art. And she's done Christmas specials. She went through the several Matt Smith episodes, a bunch of Peter Capaldi episodes. She's now done a Jodie Whittaker Doctor as well. And they're really interesting. The first one's kind of crude, but she's got a playlist. I'll put a link to the playlist on YouTube. But yeah, they're fun little vignettes, 5-minute long episodes of Doctor Who, of the various Doctor Who's from the 11th, 12th, and soon to be 13th Doctor. She even built a War Doctor in memory of John Hurt, but he hasn't actually used him in a story yet. But yeah, she if you're curious about how she makes her puppets, she built a puppet of the War Doctor in honor of John Hurt after he passed away. So that's my watch list.
Cool.
What do you got, John?
Well, this week we're going to see the return of The Good Place. I don't know if you guys are up to date on The Good Place.
Yay! Yes, I am.
I'm not, but it is definitely on my list to get up to speed on.
So, not to spoil too much, but there was a big sort of cliffhanger that left us off back in December. Of our traveling heroes as they've sort of gone from all these different existences and all these different existential discussions. Obviously, the show's deeply rooted in philosophy. And the last episode had a great guest appearance by Stephen Merchant, one of my favorite British actors. And I'm dying to see where they go with the last few episodes. They're only back for a few weeks. I think they're back for 2 or 3 more episodes. I think that's all they have remaining in the season. But that show continues to evolve and continues to delight. It is both funny and heartfelt and a great think piece as it goes. They clearly pay a lot of attention to it. It has an excellent companion podcast, which I would highly recommend as well. It's actually produced by the Showmakers, an NBC podcast, and it comes out the day immediately following each episode, and they actually break down with the actors, directors, people behind the scenes, special effects people. They break down what happened in the previous episode. It's really, really enjoyable. So I'm really looking forward to see how they wrap up what has been a really, really interesting third season of this show.
What's the dance that they're using in what's that game that everybody's playing?
Fortnite?
Yeah, the one where you do the arm swing thing in front of you and behind you and
flossing.
There's a YouTube video of them trying to teach
Ted. Yeah, I saw
Ted
that
to floss. Yeah.
They're trying to teach Ted Danson how to floss. It is one of the funniest things. If you can find it online, it is an awesome thing because he's dressed up like Michael, the character from the show, whereas with his bow tie and his slicked back hair and his great look for that show. And it's him and William Jackson Harper, who plays Chidi, both flossing. I think one of the other actors snapped this video, and it is really, really funny. You can tell that those people really like each other and that they're really having a good time. Speaking of the Golden Globes, Kristen Bell was nominated for Best Actress for her performance on that show. Ted Danson was nominated for an Emmy Award last year as well. So clearly a lot of buzz behind the show. It's clearly got a cult following, and it's already got a pickup for another season, so that's great news. And I'm dying to see what happens.
So what else we have to look forward to, John?
Well, and again, I put in the no-brainer in our watch list. The no-brainer is, we're a week and a half from season 2 of Discovery, and I know all three of us are really, really excited to get back into that world, especially, I think it finished pretty strong last year, and the short treks have whet our appetite to get back in there. So, yeah, we're finally going to get back to our raison d'etre and do some Star Trek Discovery again. So that's great. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys and breaking down what happens in this world and seeing how they integrate some of these, classic elements. We're going to see, the original Enterprise. We're going to see Spock. We're going to see Christopher Pike. We're going to see, more from the characters that we've come to enjoy. We get to see, how they evolve these characters, considering where we left them off. They've all had these really interesting heroes' journeys over the last year, from Saru to Tilly to Michael Burnham. We've seen all these sort of evolutions, and it'll be really neat to see where they pick them up and take them next. So I'm excited to get back to that world.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you on the interwebs, where would they look?
You can find me on Twitter as @GPK News, and also on Instagram as @GPK News.
Cool. All right. And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithTheHair.
All right. My name is Timitra, TIMMITRA on the Twitcher machine is probably the best way to get a hold of me. And so until, I guess, 2 weeks from now, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us out on our website at spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Tim, did you tell Jaime what I got you for Christmas? The record?
The record.
The Asimov Shatner record?
Yeah, of course, I don't have a record player, so...
I know. I was going to record it for you, but I actually found... I'll send you the link. I found somebody has recorded it and put it on YouTube.
Yeah, you give me two records, and I like them both. They're sitting over on the shelf, but I can't remember what they are. One is a space one, like about moon landing recordings?
It's a recording of the original news broadcasts and stuff of the moon landing. That was a very cool find.
Yeah, I have the spacecraft films version of like all the video that was shot during that mission, so on DVD. So I can go back and watch all 2 hours of the one spacewalk that they did.
Yeah.
And the other one is a sort of Shatner and Asimov. The Foundation, right? Yeah.
It's young William Shatner reading Isaac Asimov's Foundation on a record,
which is interesting because that was the one I was just talking about. Didn't we just talk about Space Truckin'?
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was called Space Truckin', but the first Foundation story is about how do you get from Earth to wherever they're going, and how do you get the supplies there. And it's a story about the people who do the transporting, right? Or do the transporting. I guess that's the word I should use, right?
Yep. But not in the Trekkie way.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as luck would have it, what I received for Christmas from my lovely wife and sons was a new record player. So
okay.
If you happen to be in the market for an old record player, I happen to know where I can get you.
Yeah, you should have that USB one, right?
I do. So yeah, you don't even have to plug it into a stereo. You can just plug it into your computer and listen to it that way.
Yeah. Well, I've got the whole mic set up here too, so I can probably tap into it and rip stuff, I guess is the way to say it.
That's it. Mm-hmm. I'll send it along next time we see one another.
So I can get back to listening to my original copy of Wish You Were Here with all the snap, crackle, and pops that I remember.
Yeah, that's all here in my expanded
No, I have
collection.
that one. I never gave that one to you.
Oh, no, yeah, okay. Well, I have some Frank Zappas and some other older stuff that you've bequeathed me over the years. So feel free to, if you want the nostalgic sound of music, you can come here for it.
Sure. Yeah. Cool.
The other thing we didn't talk about, we didn't get back to Doctor Who. We were
Jaime.
That's right.
We never really got back to Doctor Who because we sort of wanted to get back to that, and then we finally got our New Year's episode. Right? Did you guys watch the New Year's episode?
I did. Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't. I hope it's on DVR. What was the title? Is it called New Year's episode?
No, it had a different name. I'd have to look it up here, but yeah, no, it. I'm trying to remember what they called it, but it was on obviously New Year's Day.
It was a good one. I liked that one. His dad comes back, right?
Yes. Yeah. And not to spoil anything for Jaime, but more than just his dad.
Yeah, no, I just want to leave it at that. Mm-hmm.
It's funny, it's not listed as an S11 episode because it's not, I just looked up season 11, but it's actually not considered part of season 11.
I have it on my PVR. I can look it up.
Oh, well, yeah, and the big story was that the ratings were abysmal compared compared to the Christmas episodes, but then they didn't factor in all the streaming and all the other stuff. But apparently that was the big, the people in England were all over the story of, well, if you moved it here and you got bad ratings, you should put it back on Christmas.
Day, yeah.
Blah, 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 and yeah. Again, I never really occurred to me. Like, it never felt like they've made a point of making the Christmas episodes Christmassy. It never felt like a New Year's episode that was New Year's Eve, but yeah.
So I see 2 bits in the extras. There is Voyage of the Damned and Resolution, which actually shows Jodie Whittaker.
Yes, Resolution is the name of the new.
Okay.
That was the episode. I just looked it up. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense because I don't recognize this synopsis. Okay.
All right, your homework is to watch that one, and then we'll do our full synopsis. I did finally catch up over the holidays and watch up to the end of the first full season. But I'm curious, Jaime, did you finished the whole season other than the New Year's episode?
That's correct.
And that was your first foray into Who, right? You hadn't watched previous seasons.
Correct, which is why I think it'll be interesting to see different impressions from old-time fans versus a newbie.
Yeah. What as a newbie, what did you think of the show?
It's so weird to me because I feel like like the TLDR is I didn't quite get what the tone was supposed to be, and I didn't quite I didn't feel like anything really happened with the exception of like one character. It felt like Ryan didn't really go anywhere except for his relationship to Graham, who Graham seems to have a pretty good arc over the season. And Yaz, I feel like I don't know much about her other than she's a police officer and she's Pakistani. And if you shoved her in any random episode, she would be the same as she was at the beginning.
Yeah, she didn't really evolve a lot.
Yeah. I don't know what to expect from the Doctor. The Doctor seems like an interesting like wizard type of character. So I did like that. I did like Jodie Whittaker's portrayal of that. I just felt like the stories didn't always go someplace where I would have liked them to go. It sort of felt like, oh, okay, this thing happened. All right, sure. And there wasn't really... I understand that a lot of times there are story arcs of some sort in Doctor Who seasons. There wasn't really one in this season other than a villain showing up at the beginning and at the end of the season. So, yeah, I'm probably not the most qualified person, but it didn't strike me as a great introduction into the Doctor Who universe.
Really?
It seems like it would be better for folks who were more familiar with the universe.
Well, you know what? I think it's an interesting perspective, but I think that anybody who's watched Doctor Who at any point in their life, other than people who watched it from the very, very beginning, would all say the same thing. Because you land in the middle of this, whatever Doctor is your first Doctor, you land in the middle of this Doctor guy, and you're like, what? You know, like, because they kind of explain things as they're running madly through a scene, as opposed to giving any sort of backstory, what do you call it? Exploration?
Exposition, yeah.
Exposition, yeah. They kind of, every episode is kind of like, you know, it's almost like they're making it up as they go along, which, by the way, nudge, nudge, they are. You know, so yeah, it doesn't matter. The doctor always sort of has some, you know, I think I sent you a link to a YouTube video that I saw the other day where it's pretty common for the Doctor to say the name of the episode that the Doctor's inside the episode, right? Kind of like how we name our podcast episodes, but you know, somebody will say something that's kind of interesting or poignant or funny or whatever, and that becomes the title of our show. Well, anyway, but that happens as well, and I think that doesn't matter where you like. I mean, I was trying to think today. I was talking to Tammy and the lady that does the puppet Doctor. That I don't remember if John Pertwee or Tom Baker was my first Doctor, but I just remember being a little confused when I first started watching it. You know, because you just kind of land right in the middle of this guy called the Doctor who has this companion who has a TARDIS and it travels through time. You know.
Well, we talked about it before in one of our previous episodes, but this season particularly because this was a double restart. Usually over the last few series, there's been either the Doctor or the companion has sort of carried over between iterations. Yeah. This was the first time in several years that they've done both simultaneously. Yeah. So
well, you used to do that back in the day as well. Like it used to be. Siri, don't help.
So we could replace Tim with Siri, is what she's saying?
Yeah. Interesting.
This is our new guest host. Her name is Siri.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's it has happened in the past, but I think it's been a little easier transition. Like I think what Jaime is describing as sort of who are these people and what's happening, and you sort of have to sort of get your feet under you and go is very true. I think if you were jumping on board, you would probably come out of it and say, "Hey, I like Jodie Whittaker. I like some of the supporting cast. The adventures were interesting. Not all of them, but most of them were good. It was not very cohesive. So I think if you were looking for sort of an overarching theme, I don't think you would find that in this particular season. There certainly are in the Matt Smith and David Tennant eras far better seasons of collective entire seasons that work well together, I think, than this one did.
Well, there's also an interesting twist in that the TARDIS is very much part of the Doctor, right? And it starts the season without a TARDIS. She's lost the TARDIS in the Christmas episode just before this, right? And you don't. And I was kind of thinking about how Jaime would react to this in the second episode, because she's trying to find the TARDIS, but they're not calling it the TARDIS, sort of thing. Yeah. Until she gets to the very end, and then everybody kind of goes, "Well, what is this thing? And how could it possibly be bigger on the inside than it is on the outside?" Yeah. Which, if you've read the Robert Asprin, what's that series? Myth Adventures.
Myth books. Yeah.
They always had the tents that were giant on the inside, and Harry Potter stole that for
it's a common trope in fantasy sci-fi. Expanding
magic tent. Yeah.
But again, I think if you look at it as a whole, even looking, without spoiling the final episode, I think, Jodie Whittaker was charming. I think she was great. I think there's some potential in the supporting cast, although I think Jaime's absolutely nailed it with the fact that I don't think they were as realized as they could have been. And I think that there's some work to be done. The other thing we've sort of glossed over is, as we talked about in a previous episode, this is a new creative cast behind the scenes too.
Right.
This is the first new showrunner, new writers. This is a sort of a new reboot across the board. It was very much more just sort of slow burn standalone episodes, and there were some good ones and there were some okay ones. I don't think there was genuinely any bad ones, but I think it'll be interesting to see where they go. And again, apparently they're not coming back for a year. It'll be interesting to see how they come back at it. Are we going to continue with more sort of anthology, Doctor Who can do whatever, go anywhere, and we'll just get more of that? Or are they going to sort of go back to a more cohesive, let's see, a story arc, tie it into some of the mythology that's larger? Because this one also didn't really go a lot of connective tissue to the previous Doctor Who world. So
right, and Jaime didn't see he didn't see the New Year's episode, so he didn't see the garbage can with the plunger stuck in front of it.
No.
Which is what had Jonathan running screaming from the room back in the day, right?
Yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see where they sort of build from this. I think it's certainly a good foundation. And again, I am now a Jodie Whittaker fan. I think her performance, she really got a lot more. The thing I didn't enjoy about the previous Doctor was he was just a little dour. She just brought a little more joyfulness to it. She was a little more, for me, that sort of
positive outlook kind of person.
Well, just a little bit more of a manic and silly, performance. The way she cocked her eyebrow and sort of gave you the sort of side smile and stuff like that. She has that same Matt Smith, David Tennant wit and charm, and just a little bit of life that was missing. I think there were some really heavy episodes over the last few years. Not that they were all bad. I mean, I think he was a terrific actor, but this really brought a little bit more of the joy back to it that I think was missing, and it's certainly enough to make me want more so to come back again.
Yeah, and I've said it before, the Christopher Eccleston Doctor Who,
same thing, too dour.
He was a bit crusty and a bit curmudgeonly. I watched it because I liked the franchise, right? Mm-hmm. In the same way that you would watch Star Trek, having no matter which one of the earlier versions you'd seen. But I wasn't really happy with it until it started getting into David Tennant. Yeah, David Tennant. Yeah. Yep. So. All right, we got to wrap it up, boys. Right. So I guess we'll talk to you guys in the future.
All right, good to talk to you guys.
Okay,
bye.
All right, see ya.